Part 2 and final of session 98. Let's continue talking here about second density. Let's begin. In the last episode, I said that this session in particular is completely devoted to the personal material that was published in Book 5. So we're going to continue with this personal material, meaning that there is no spiritual, metaphysical, or mystical teachings in here, but rather just conversation about their current state of life. In this case, we're going to get into, which we got a little bit in the last episode, the cats that they had. So a little bit of a conversation in that. We can get a glimpse on second density, but that's the best I can make out of this exchange. It's not very exciting, admittedly. Still, we can talk about second density and something interesting about cancer, which I think it's relevant for people who want to know how this works. So, in the last episode, like I said, we talked a little bit about the cat Gandalf, which was, I think, the eldest, funny enough, of the cats that they had. And we're going to continue talking about that. So let's just dive into what we have in the conversation between Don and Ra. This is question 9, and Don says, I was wondering if I was correct in my assumption that the reason for the growths was a state of anger in the cat, Gandalf, because of the introduction of the newer cats into his environment. Was I correct? Ra says, the original cause of what you call cancer was the distortion caused by this event. The proximate cause of this growth is the nature of the distortion of the body cells, which you call cancer. So the situation was they had Gandalf and they introduced some new cats, and that seemed to not sit well with Gandalf, and he didn't like that, and that caused him cancer. It's pretty interesting, right? Something to think about when you have pets, that they are very sensitive to other animals sharing their space, because that's what they're coming out of, territoriality, that's embedded in all animals. No matter how nice they may be, they like to have their territory, especially when they have cultivated an environment for them. And remember that animals, or at least pets, all animals are actually doing this, but pets in particular, there is an investment in self-awareness that we're doing. And that self-awareness comes, of course, with space, because that space that we share with them is their space. And this shows, the primitive mentality of nature. The primitive mentality is to have a secure space and to, of course, live within that space, sharing it with those they deem their alpha, so to speak. It's a terrible term, I don't like it, but those who are more loving to them and provide to them. So, yeah, if you start introducing new creatures, new beings, even new people, that can cause some sort of disturbance. So, again, nothing to fret about, but just to consider and know. And so why cancer? Well, when there is a disturbance in your mind and you obviously don't accept what's happening, then that reflects not only in your mind but in your body. That's how cancer grows. There is no other source of cancer but that. And of course, if you cultivate this environment, then eventually it'll grow as a physical one. And we have many organs in which this disturbance can manifest and reflect from the mind. So yeah, the original disturbance is that's why Ra says the original cause of what you call cancer was the distortion caused by this event. Yes, I don't like it. I don't like being around all these cats. then the proximate cause of this growth, right, of the growth itself, is the nature of the cells, in essence, which is a random, chaotic growth of the cells. That's the nature of cancerous cells. They're not multiplying in a way that is harmonious with the rest of the environment, which is the organ, the specific organ. So they're out of control. So you can see how the original cause is a mental one, and the proximate cause would be the nature of the cell growth, which in this case causes a tumor. Right? It's a physical growth, different from I think other cancers. So yeah, something to know. And we talked about cancer probably like 50 sessions ago. I know there's a couple of sessions where we specifically talked about, actually I just did an interview, session 46, somebody reminded me that that's where they explain the growth of cancer. Okay, let's keep talking about this. Don says, are there any cancerous growths at this time within the cat Gandalf? Any other cancerous growths? And Ra says, yes. So there is more cancer tumors. Question 11, Don says, can we alleviate those? And if so, how and where are they? Ra says, none can be alleviated at this space-time nexus. One is located within the juncture of the right hip. Another, which is very small, is near the organ you call the liver. There are also small cell distortions under the, we may call it arm, to distinguish the upper appendages on both sides. So the cat Gandalf had another one on the right hip, then near the liver, which is interesting because of anger being reflected in the liver. And there were two under the front legs, right? Ross says arm. That's funny. Still, that's what they meant. So, yeah, I don't have anything else to say here. Let's keep talking about Gandalf. Question 12, Don says, is there anything that we can do to alleviate these problems other than surgical that would have a good effect to help Gandalf alleviate them? Ross says, continue in praise and thanksgiving, asking for the removal of these distortions. There are two possible outcomes. Firstly, the entity shall dwell with you in contentment until its physical vehicle holds it no more due to distortions caused by the cancerous cells. Secondly, the life path may become that which allows the healing. And they finish saying, we do not infringe upon free will by examining this life path, although we may note the preponderance of life paths which use some distortion, such as this, to leave the physical body, which in this case is the orange ray body. So a couple of things we can extract from this. And the first one is that, Don wants to know if there's anything that they can do to alleviate the growths and cancer. They want to heal the cat. Ross says that no, there isn't, and right? If there was something, I feel like he asked the same question twice, didn't he? Yeah, other than surgical. Okay, so maybe that was the difference there, because he first said, can we alleviate those? And they said that no. So I guess no surgical procedure was recommended. That's why they said no. But other than that, well, of course, Ra would say, just continue. You know, when they say praise and thanksgiving is surrounding with harmony. You know, when somebody's dying and you can't do anything, right? What are you gonna do? You're going to surround them with love, right? With your presence and with everything that they want and so on. So that's basically what it is. Praise and thanksgiving. And it's a good idea to keep, these ideas in mind. I want you to get better. I think it was in session 68 when Carla was going to surgery, and they, in essence, gave the same indication. You can have these affirmations and thoughts of, I hope you heal, I hope you're better. And that has an effect, of course, because everything is interconnected. So that's the best indication that Ra gives to Don. And then they describe two possible scenarios. The first one is that the entity will live in contentment. It's going to be happy around them until it dies, in essence, due to the distortions of cancerous cells. That's what they said. Secondly, the second path would be that it'll heal. Now, this is up to the cat itself, not to them, because the cat is the one generating all of this by the anger. So if you do provide a better environment and it doesn't have the anger, then yeah, maybe. And this actually translates beautifully to humans, because we forget that we humans have still the animal body and mentality. So depending on where we are in that, and if we have cancerous growth cells, then, or anything really, well, all we can do is maybe alleviate that by going into the nature of why that's happening. What's the disturbance? What's the original disturbance? We can treat physically many things through substances and chemicals or whatever treatment that goes only to the body. But what about the mind? The mind which is producing it, you see, it'll come back because the source hasn't been rooted out. So cancerous cells will continue to reproduce over time. So it really is up to the person, in this case the animal, to release that tension, that contraction, that there's a point where Ra calls it an incompatibility with current vibrations. So it's almost like if you are in a party, right, and there's somebody, and the party is harmonious and everybody is happy, exchanging stories and laughing and so on, and there's somebody who is just being troublesome. That person is the one that, and I'm talking about just one mind here. If there are thoughts, just like the person is being troublesome, then that's going to ruin the party, and there is an incompatibility of vibration. Exactly, right? The other thoughts are either going to, be contaminated by it, or they will soothe the one that is being troublesome. So you can't continue with the party or life if there is disharmony within. And that's exactly what's happening here. Now, again, that second part, it is my interpretation that obviously you can't heal anybody. Ra said that. The healer does not heal. It simply provides the environment for the person to heal itself. And that's it. Now, the second or third part, this is not a path, but it's something that Ra denotes here, which I find very enlightening, especially for us who, in modern society, we're scared of death. Not of our own death, because we're very brave, right? Everybody says, I'm not afraid of dying. Of course you're not, but you're afraid of somebody else's death, because we don't understand what's happening. We're not afraid of death. We're afraid of the unknown. We don't know what it is, so the mind is afraid. But you see, Ra says something important here. They say, We may note the preponderance of life paths which use some distortion, such as this one, to leave the physical body. Many of these diseases, right, they're present because it's time to die. It's okay, you lived enough. Time to die, time to go. You gotta go. We can't control that in ourselves and in others. We don't know. All we can do is provide that environment for them. And if that works out, great. Whether that be for, dying happily or to simply heal, well, that's great. But maybe to alleviate a little bit of the worry, the unnecessary worry that creates this stress in the mind when we want somebody to heal. Yes, it's okay that we want people to heal, animals also, but memento mori. Remember, you're going to die. Death it's there. It's right around the corner. So don't forget about that. So I think that's a fair thing to point out at this point. Remember, you're going to die. Next question. A little grim, I know, but hey, it's the truth. What can I say? Question 13. Don says, does the cat Fairchild have any of this same type of problem? Ra says, not at this space-time nexus. Question 14. Don says, was it necessary for the cat Gandalf to be a mind-body-spirit complex harvestable third density to have the anger result in cancer? And Ra says, no. And to this, Don asks, then any mind-body complex can develop cancer as a result of anger. Is this correct? And Ra says, it's a long answer here. This is correct. At this time, we would break our routine by making an observation. We observe the following coincidence. Firstly, the congestion of the instrument's throat due to the flow of mucus caused by energized allergic reaction has, at this point, become such that we may safely predict the probability-possibility vortex approaching certainty that within 1/2 of an hour, we shall need to depart from this working. I don't know why that's a coincidence. I don't see it. We're talking about cats. I guess the coincidence that they have to leave, just like Gandalf had to leave soon. But okay, let's dial back, and then we'll come back to this because the answer is right at the beginning. Okay, so initially, Fairchild is another cat that they had, and that didn't have any cancer cells or cancerous growths. Was it necessary for Gandalf? Okay, so this cat had been invested enough with self-awareness by means of love and creating that space and environment that I talked about, which is really what we do with pets. That's the nature of us having pets. We want to accelerate their growth into third density, right? And so this cat is already invested with spirit, which means that it had self-awareness. It had the primitive stages of self-awareness, which we see in pets. Okay, we talked about this in the past. And so that's harvestable. And then Don is asking if it needed to have that self-awareness or invested with spirit to grow cancer. And Ra said no. So Don obviously says any mind-body complex. So notice that he doesn't say mind-body-spirit, but mind-body complex. Then can develop cancer as a result of anger. And that is correct, says Ra. So we can see, even here, we can get a glimpse into how the mind works, because the mind is anything. Anything has mind. Anything that has a mind, as primitive as it may be. Energy has a mind. The photon has a mind, and it behaves in a particular way. You can say that its mind is so primitive, and yet it has a pattern. All minds are patterns. All possible minds. They're just that the patterns become more complex. And that complexity manifests as a human being, as an insect, as a piece of rock, or as a photon. That complexity is what we call a little bit more primitive, right? Less intricate, let's say. And so the photon, for example, has that pattern. It moves in a particular way. It has its own vibration. And that's a mind, you see. So all minds have these patterns. And when we get into more complex life, like second density and third density, then we can see that the mind, when it is resistant, let's say, when it has some sort of resistance, which is natural that it happens. It's not something that we should avoid, but just to become aware of. At this point, then the mind is in disharmony. And that, the result of anger, which is something that obviously happens with any mind that is capable of fighting the environment, which most animals do, unless they're very, very primitive, then yeah, they are prone to having cancer, because it is a distortion within the mind. It is a disharmony within the mind, and the result, of course, is that. So it signals the body that way. And then the rest, which I don't know why they took so long to say, in essence, that they were just leaving. The rest is just saying that Carla's throat was not in a good condition, I guess, and they were predicting that within half hour they had to leave or finish the session. And then they say, at the end, secondly, as we noted the above, the sound vibration made by one of your sound vibration recording devices was audible to us. If this group desires, it may choose to have sessions which are brought to an ending soon after this sound vibration occurs. This decision would ensure the minimal distortions within the instrument towards the discomfort/comfort within the throat until the effects of the magical working of your fifth density companion have been removed. So this second part is saying, we heard the tape click. By the way, now I assume that all of you know what a tape recorder is, or even a tape is at this point. When was the last time you actually saw a tape recorder? That's what they use in the 80s to record the sessions. And I think they use 2 or 3 for redundancy, right? So they could capture everything always and not miss something. So one of them clicked, and I guess they heard that noise, and they said, that's a good amount of time for us to remain within the body complex of Carla because she's sick. So maybe that will alleviate a little bit more so it doesn't take too much of a toll on her. They're trying to administer her energy and recovery, in essence, by saying this. And it's a suggestion, right? Yeah, it's a suggestion. If you desire, you can use that. Meaning that the ending of the recording to finish the session. Question 16, Don says, that is perfectly fine with us. That noise occurs at the 45-minute time, since the tape is 45 minutes on a side. I would ask, as a final question then, if the new table that Jim has built for the appurtenances is satisfactory to hold them, since it will give us more room to walk around the bed, and if it is better to leave it in its natural condition as it is, or to coat it with linseed oil or varnish or paint. Ross S. We view this appurtenance. It sings with joy. The pine vibrates in praise. Much investment of this working in wood has been done. It is acceptable. We may suggest it be left either as it is or rubbed with the oil, which also is easily magnetized and holds the proffered vibration to a profound extent. I'm not sure what proffered means. The linseed oil, that's what Ra recommended. So again, more material that is totally historical, personal, and to the point of the time they were living. I guess Jim built a table for the appurtenances. These were the censer, the Bible, and the chalice, I think. Those were the items that Carla had on top of her head while she was channeling. And I guess they built a table that was more convenient because they could move around better. And Jim did a great job of building. For those of you who don't know, Jim actually built his own cabin in the 70s in, I forget where, I think it was around Kentucky as well, or in Kentucky. So he lived like a hermit for a while before actually moving to their house, to Carla and Don's house in Louisville, I think it was initially. So yes, this was Jim. He was a builder. So he built this table, and yeah, Rogers said it was good. I love that they say that it sings with joy. The pine vibrates in praise. There's a difference when you create something or when somebody creates something for you as opposed to just buying it from a factory, right? There is something that you feel like, there is a life to this. See, there's energy here. There's something that I appreciate from somebody doing this, with their hands for me. And so that's something that Ra is saying there as they look at the table, I guess. So, well, yeah, we're going to finish this episode pretty quick. Like I said, these sessions contain very little information about the path, let's call it, our path. And, well, we're just finishing up. We have a couple more sessions to finish. And we have at least one more question. And I went too far. Question 17, Don says, I was wondering if this would be an appropriate time to end since the tape recorder has clicked some time ago. Ross says, this is a matter of your discrimination. The instrument remains open to our use, although, as we have noted, the physical distortions begin to mount. Don simply said, yes, I think it's better to close the session. That way we can maintain Carla's energy. Ra says, as usual, that all is well, and they leave. And that's it. That's all we got for this session. Conclusions. I think going back to second density. I kind of love it. It's one of those many things that the Law of One offers that has that view of how everything is moving from the nothingness back to nothingness. And it describes this path of evolution, which is called spiritual evolution. Because in essence, what happens is that awareness first manifests as what we call matter, energy. And this matter or energy is the basis of its experience. And so as it moves, it creates life forms. These life forms are naturally moving towards what we call the light, right? They're moving towards awareness. That's what it is. They're moving towards the light. They're moving towards awareness. Well, the first thing that they're going to find, these life forms, this energy that was initially quote unquote matter, it's going to seek awareness. That awareness is very primitive, as I alluded. And that awareness eventually becomes aware not only of its surroundings, which is usually what uses, to feed itself, to grow, to reproduce, and so on, to continue this beautiful dance of life, because that's what life forms are doing. So they're becoming so aware that of the environment that eventually they look within, not even within themselves, but they look at themselves and they feel as entities. That's the point in which self-awareness is trained, I guess, is endowed by itself. It's very simple. Just imagine, that your energy moving, you have no idea of anything. Suddenly you are aware of the energy that is moving and you become a life form. Okay, that's great. You still don't know that you are. You simply know that there is things, the world is, and that's the merging of awareness with everything else. And that's why we love about animals, that they don't have an ego. You see, they don't have an image of themselves. They simply are, and they have that innocence. Well, the babies have the same thing until they start to develop an ego, and then we can see their reactions to the environment because they are beginning to preserve that image. But that's what life is doing, right? Eventually, that awareness of the surroundings comes back to them, and they say, "Oh, I am." You see, I have the joke that in third density, that which begins third density is what ends it. The I am, because I am is the first thing that a self-aware creature would experience. It won't say it, doesn't have to have a verbal or mental thought for this. I am is a knowledge of existence, and a center of awareness, a centering of awareness. And then we go into all kinds of escapades and wars and civilizations and philosophies and politics and empires and so on, because we have self-awareness. Eventually, how do we get out of this? How do we move from this into the next density? Well, I am. Go back to the simplicity of I am, and everything will inform you there, because that which is the spirit that gave you self-awareness, which didn't give you self-awareness. You realized spirit, you forgot, and you went into the whole imagery of the illusion of egos and people and dynasties and my life and your life and so on. We bought this game of separation. Eventually it needs to end. How? Well, through awareness. Through the same principle, I am. So I think that's a joke. It's a cosmic joke. How we get the I am principle at the beginning stages, or at the initial stage of third density. We take that I am and we corrupt it, or use it. No, don't corrupt it. We actually just play with it. We play with all kinds of games and images and rules and laws and blah, blah, blah. And eventually we go back to that I am to move out, to say I'm done with playing. This is it. Third density has served its purpose in me, and I'm ready to move on. Can't do it with the ego though, unless you fortify it in the negative path, but I'm not going to talk about that. So yeah, that's second density for you. That's what happens, and we are at that point in which we're still in a body that is second density. Let's not forget that we embody a second density life form. It's just that is so rich with self-awareness that it can do so much. You see, that's the power of humans, is to stop being humans and be suprahumans, I would say. In any case, that's all my rambling for today. Next, let's take a look at next session, since we have so much time. We have a little mix of personal material, a lot of personal material. We have significator of mind, so we're going back to the archetypical mind. That's good. Okay. For now, I have nothing else to say but to, again, thank you for being part of this path, of this investigation, for appreciating the raw material, and I have nothing else to say but have a good day, good night, whatever you are, and I'll see you in the next video.